when your child says, I don't love you, here's what they actually need to hear from you. My name's Jodie Thornton, and this is a really important topic for me because I feel like it can be such a confronting thing to hear from your child, and so it can be quite upsetting. But then there's also this piece of really wanting to connect with your child and make sure that they feel like that you do really love them. And the issue with all of that is that's all what we are worried about and what we are thinking about. It's actually irrelevant to what's going on for your child in that moment. So when your child says, I don't love you, they're not saying, like, actually, our relationship is damaged, or I'm worried about whether you will love me. Like, that's not what they're saying. They're actually trying to communicate something to you. So either it'll be something like, I wish you'd let me choose my lunch, or why did you cut triangles when, maybe they asked for triangles, but that's irrelevant, right? They're trying to get something across to you. When they can't find the words, they're reaching for something that at least gives across the intensity of how they're feeling. And so our job is to help them learn how to express what they're really trying to say. Because when we talk about, I'll love you always, or we always will love each other, even when we're mad at each other, we'll always love each other, I can almost guarantee that they're not thinking about that, right? They're not worried about that. And even if they might be, like, in that moment, what they're trying to do is communicate something to you. So when you start talking about anything other than what they're trying to communicate to you, you're still leaving them with the feeling of being unheard, right? And so the reason we're doing this is that when we had big feelings, and when we were children, when we had big feelings or we expressed ourselves in really intense ways, we got the message back of, like, I will only love you if you behave, or I will only love you if you speak to me respectfully and kindly, or, there's all these different messages around, whether the love that we were receiving is conditional or not. And so what we're trying to do is, I don't want you to feel the way I felt, so I'm going to give you what I needed. But actually, the only reason you needed that reassurance is because you were getting the message that the love you were receiving was conditional, right? And so your child hasn't received that message, and so we don't need to be undoing something that hasn't happened yet, right? And I will just add, there may be some circumstances where you may have ended up expressing yourself in a way that implies that the love that they receive from you is conditional. Even if that's true, I want you to know that the only reason that would happen is because you were conditioned in a certain way when you were a child, and you haven't yet learned the skills to do it, to parent without using those approaches, right? I want you to have a lot of compassion for yourself, but even if that's true, even if there have been times where you have expressed that your love was conditional, in this moment, your child is not looking for reassurance that you will love them. In this moment, your child is trying to communicate something to you. And so what we want to do is help them learn to articulate themselves in a way that gets their point across, and help them see that we hear them, we care about what's important to them, right? And so what we want to do is, first we want to think about, what are the reasons that a child would not be able to express themselves directly with assertive language? The first reason is that they haven't developed the emotional awareness or the ability to articulate what their feelings are telling them. That's a skill, right? If they don't yet have the skill to be able to consistently identify, what is it I'm trying to say and how do I say it? That's one issue. A second issue is if they're so dysregulated that they can't access the, like, verbal reasoning part. Like, they can't access their ability to find the words, and so they're just going to something that at least matches the intensity of what they're trying to get across. And so if your child is dysregulated, then the first thing we want to do is just help them to regulate. So use your body language, use your tone of voice, use your word choice to really help them come back into regulation, and then talk about what's going on, right? If it's a case where your child is just, like, reaching for words and they just can't put into words how they're feeling, then we want to give them first whatever's the best guess that you have about what's going on. So you may have a clear understanding of why they're upset. We want to reflect that back to them. Oh, sweetie, Are you really wanting me to change my mind? Right? Oh, sweetie, are you really upset that you got triangles for your lunch? Right? Well, I'm just giving back the words, and I personally, I use quite adult language with my kids. Like I don't kind of use shorter words and try to like make it sound kiddish. I use pretty mature language. Also swearing, but that's a side note. But you can use like words that are more like sound like what they would use, but what we're looking for is getting across what are they trying to say, right? This is what we want to do. And if you've got a good guess, we want to ask them, is this what you're trying to tell me? And if they say yes, then we want to look for how can we solve that problem in a way that works for everybody. That is what your child needs from you in that moment. Now, if you don't have a good guess, just because that it feels irrational, or it feels really like it's come out of nowhere, and you're really not sure, like, why are they so upset based on the situation that's just been happened? That's a terrible sentence, but if you're not clear based on what the situation is that you're in, like where has this come from, then we just want to ask questions. Oh, sweetie, what's upset you? Oh, sweetie, and you might say, have I done something that wasn't good for you? Right? You're asking questions. I want to know. Now, for all of the examples I've given, my tone has been pretty grounded, pretty calm, reasonably loving. Like your tone of voice doesn't have to be like that. It can be cheeky, it can be fun. We just want to make sure that it doesn't sound like you're trying to like ask a question, but it's actually feedback. Like you're trying to give them a message, you're not asking a question. So if you say something like, oh, and so you really need me to change my mind, I guess, right? Like, to see how that tone just feels like I'm not asking a question. I'm telling you that your position is a problem. Like what you think or feel is the problem that we need to deal with. Whereas what we first want to do is we want to get on the same page. What is it that you're really upset about? We want to make sure that your child feels heard, because this is the most important thing. When your child says something intense, whether it's I don't love you, I hate you, I wish I didn't live in this family, like all of those really intense things to say, what they're trying to get is heard. And so your job is to make sure that you actually hear the underlying message that they're trying to get across. Now, part of that, so we want them to have the experience that we hear them. But then the second part of this is we're building their skills to be able to communicate assertively and clearly, right? So that they don't have to reach for those extreme things to say. They know how to just express what it is that's going on for them. So, I hope this has been really helpful. And I wanted to say, like, I don't think that there's a need, even when you've calmed down, I don't feel like there's a need to even address whether they do or don't love you, or whether you love them. I think that, like, continue telling them you love them in all of the places that you would normally. But I don't think that when this blows over, like when it's sorted out in some way, I don't think you need to come back and say, no matter how mad at you, no matter how mad at me you are, I will always love you, because it's still it's still talking about something that didn't happen, right? You're saying to them, like, it's almost introducing the concept that if they treated you intensely enough that you would stop loving them, right? We just want to focus on what do they need. They need to be heard, and they need to learn how to articulate themselves, which is a skill that's not just for your relationship with them, but their relationship with their other parent, their relationship with their siblings, their relationship with their friends. Like the ability to clearly get across what I am feeling and what I am needing, such an important skill for us lifelong, right? So I hope that's been really helpful. If this is something that is still a bit tricky for you, you feel a bit stuck in it, maybe you're feeling unsure that this is actually going to get to the heart of it, maybe you're feeling like being able to guess what it is that they're trying to actually articulate is tricky for you, please do reach out. So if you send me an email, it's jody@jodythornton.com. I'm more than happy to chat to you. If there's something simple, I can just give you a response by email. But if there's something deeper that we want to work through, like maybe the reason this is feeling a bit murky for you is that you really did struggle in your relationship with one or both of your parents, and so you're really wanting to make sure that you're not recreating those patterns with your child, then maybe we can do some work on building up some skills for you, building up some reassurance that what you're doing is working for your child, and making sure that you're creating a different experience for your child than what you had. We can, if that's something that's going on, we can book a time to chat and I can talk to you about how I could help. Thank you so much for watching.